mid-November of 2017, a 24-year-old woman named Sydney Loofe finished her shift at a Menards store in Lincoln, Nebraska, went home briefly, and then left for an evening date she had arranged online. Sydney lived alone in a small apartment and worked regular retail hours. She stayed in close contact with her family and spoke often with friends. Growing up, she had been active and social, spending time outdoors and playing sports before health issues slowed her down. By her 20s, she was navigating adulthood mostly on her own. In the weeks before that night, Sydney had been struggling. She had spoken openly with her family about anxiety and depression, and just days earlier, they had helped her schedule a doctor's appointment so she could begin treatment. Nothing about her plans that evening seemed unusual. She told friends she was meeting someone she had connected with through Tinder. Before leaving her apartment, Sydney took a photo and posted it to Snapchat. She was dressed for a date. The caption was casual. There was no indication that anything was wrong. The woman Sydney planned to meet was using the name Audrey on the app. They had already gone on one date the night before, and this was meant to be their second. Before agreeing to meet again, Sydney asked a specific question more than once. She wanted to know whether anyone else would be present. Each time, she was told no. That evening, Sydney drove south toward the town of Wilbur, Nebraska. Her phone data later showed her traveling the route as expected. At 8:32 p.m., her phone connected to a cell tower in Wilbur. That was the last time it would register a signal. The following morning, Sydney did not show up for work. When she didn't respond to calls or messages, her mother believed something was wrong and reported her missing. Police were sent to her apartment to check on her. Sydney was not there. Her car was still parked outside. Her purse and glasses were inside. There were no signs of a struggle. Nothing appeared disturbed. Her cat had not been fed. Investigators began working backward, tracing the last known location where her phone had been active. That trail led them to Wilbur. Cell tower data narrowed the search to a basement apartment in town. The unit was rented by a woman named Bailey Boswell and a man named Aubrey Trail. Around the same time police began asking questions, the owner of the property noticed something unusual. A strong bleach odor was coming from the basement. The smell was persistent and overpowering. It spread through the building and caused physical reactions for people inside. Despite the cold November weather, the tenants were running an air conditioner continuously. Police conducted a welfare check at the apartment. No one answered the door. Using a key provided by the landlord, officers entered the basement. Nothing appeared out of place. The apartment looked clean, ordinary. There were no visible signs of violence. The only thing that lingered was the smell. While investigators continued working the case, one of Sydney's friends decided to identify the person she had gone to meet. She opened Tinder and began swiping through profiles, searching for the account named Audrey. When she found it, she matched with the profile and sent a message. A phone number came back. That number was turned over to police. It led them to Bailey Boswell. On November 28th, Boswell and Trail were publicly named as persons of interest. That same day, they appeared together in a Facebook livestream. Sitting side by side, they spoke calmly to the camera and denied any involvement. Boswell described the dates as uneventful and claimed she had dropped Sydney off afterward. Trail sat beside her and prayed aloud for Sydney to be found safe. 2 days later, the pair were arrested at a motel in Missouri on unrelated fraud charges. Inside their vehicle, police found maps, sleeping bags, and travel gear consistent with plans to leave the area. In early December, search teams located several black trash bags scattered along a rural gravel road in Nebraska. Inside were dismembered human remains. They belonged to Sydney Loofe. As investigators reconstructed the days surrounding her disappearance, a pattern emerged. Surveillance footage and store receipts placed Boswell and Trail purchasing bleach, trash bags, saws, wire, and cutting tools before and after the date. Cell phone data showed their phones traveling from Lincoln to Wilbur along the same road Sydney had taken. Electric wire found near the remains became significant. Aubrey Trail eventually began confessing. His accounts changed over time. In some versions, he claimed sole responsibility. In others, he described an act that went wrong. Certain details led investigators to physical evidence, including the recovery of Sydney's phone. Other claims unraveled under scrutiny. Bailey Boswell maintained that she was not responsible for what happened. At trial, prosecutors presented a timeline built from phone records, surveillance footage, and purchase histories. The defense argued coercion, manipulation, and intent that did not align with murder. Jurors deliberated for hours. Aubrey Trail was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. Bailey Boswell was convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy and sentenced to life in prison. Sydney Loofe was 24 years old. She left work for a date. She did not return. In early June of 2008, a 30-year-old salesman named Travis Alexander was found dead inside his home in Mesa, Arizona. He had been killed in his bathroom. Travis lived alone in a suburban house and worked as a motivational speaker and salesman for a legal services company. He was outgoing, well-liked, and heavily involved in his church. Friends described him as confident and social, someone who stayed busy and kept a wide circle of acquaintances. 2 years earlier, Travis had met a woman named Jodi Arias at a work conference in Las Vegas. She was working in sales at the time and showed interest in his work and beliefs. Not long after meeting, Arias converted to Travis's church, and he baptized her himself. They began dating soon after. The relationship was unstable from the beginning. They broke up and reconciled repeatedly, sometimes living near each other, sometimes maintaining a long-distance arrangement. Friends of Travis later described the relationship as intense and difficult. Some said Arias appeared possessive and intrusive, and that Travis had expressed concerns about her behavior. By the spring of 2008, the relationship had ended again. Travis was seeing other women and preparing for a work trip. Arias had moved back to California, but the two remained in contact. On June 4th, 2008, Travis was at home in Mesa. That afternoon, photographs were taken inside the house. Some showed Travis and Arias together. One of the final images captured Travis alive, standing in the shower. Later that day, he missed an important work call. No one heard from him again. Several days passed before friends grew concerned. Travis's roommates had not seen him and assumed he was traveling. When a group of friends entered his bedroom, they noticed blood leading toward the bathroom. Inside the shower, they found Travis's body. He had been stabbed dozens of times. His throat had been cut. He had also been shot once in the head. Investigators later testified that many of the wounds were inflicted while he was still alive. Police quickly focused on Jodi Arias. In the days after Travis's death, Arias traveled extensively, driving thousands of miles in a rental car. When she returned it, the vehicle was missing floor mats and showed unexplained stains. Witnesses noticed cuts on her hands. She continued calling Travis's phone and accessing his voicemail. Inside Travis's home, investigators found a damaged digital camera. Although it had been washed, technicians recovered deleted images from its memory card. The photos showed Arias and Travis together on the day of the killing. Some were taken the minutes before his death. Others showed him bleeding on the bathroom floor. A bloody handprint found in the hallway contained DNA from both of them. When questioned, Arias gave multiple accounts. At first, she claimed she had not been in Arizona. Later, she said intruders had attacked them both. Years later, she testified that she killed Travis in self-defense during a violent confrontation. In 2013, Arias stood trial for first-degree murder. Prosecutors argued that the killing was planned. They presented evidence of preparation, deception, and attempts to conceal the crime. The defense argued abuse and fear, claiming Arias acted to save her own life. After weeks of testimony, the jury rejected the self-defense claim. Jodi Arias was found guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. The jury could not agree on a death sentence. In 2015, she was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Travis Alexander was 30 years old. He was killed in his own home. In October of 2012, a 29-year-old attorney named Poston was living alone in a condominium in Highland Heights, Kentucky. Ryan worked as a lawyer in the Cincinnati area and had recently begun building his career. Friends described him as driven and social, someone who maintained a wide circle of connections and stayed active outside of work. He lived close to his family and kept in regular contact with them. The year before, Ryan had met a woman named Shayna Hubers through Facebook. She was younger than Ryan and living in Lexington at the time, where she was attending graduate school. The two began dating soon after they met. Their relationship was unstable. Over the course of about a year and a half, they broke up and reconciled multiple times. Messages later exchanged between them showed frequent arguments and emotional tension. People close to Ryan said the relationship felt difficult and unpredictable. By the fall of 2012, the relationship had ended again. Ryan had begun seeing other people and had made plans for a date later that same evening. Hubers traveled to Ryan's condominium on October 12th. That night, Ryan was inside his home. What happened next would only become clear later. Shortly after midnight, Shayna Hubers called 911 and reported that she had shot Ryan Poston inside his condominium. Police arrived to find Ryan dead from multiple gunshot wounds. Hubers was taken into custody and questioned. During her interview, she claimed she had acted in self-defense and described the relationship as abusive. She spoke freely to investigators and made a number of statements about the shooting while alone in the interrogation room. Hubers was arrested and charged with murder. At trial, prosecutors argued that the killing occurred after Ryan made it clear he wanted to end the relationship permanently. They presented text messages, witness testimony, and statements Hubers had made following the shooting. The defense argued that Hubers was a victim of domestic violence and had acted to protect herself. In April of 2015, a jury found Hubers guilty of murder and recommended a 40-year sentence. Months later, that conviction was overturned after it was discovered that one of the jurors was legally disqualified from serving. The case went to trial a second time. In 2018, another jury again rejected the claim of self-defense and found Shayna Hubers guilty of murder. She was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after serving the required minimum. Ryan Poston was only 29 years old when he was killed. Alright guys, that will be it for today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss next week's upload. I drop new stories every week, so there's always something coming. I'll see you in the next one.